Thank you. Thank you. Man, you guys memorizing your shit. I I can't. I used to have a photographic memory, but it only worked for pictures. Anyway, thanks for coming out for South for the winter. How many of you are actually from up north? Show of hands. Show of both hands. Pass your valuables forward. This is a robbery. Okay. So this is called cryptids, which is a life form whose existence has been suggested but not verified. Examples would include Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, and for those of you who raise your hands, Southsiders. Which is odd, considering the vast size and population of the South Side. So Chicago was laid out in a grid system with the north, south, east, west street numbering system radiating out from State and Madison streets, that intersection. We have lots of right angles and crosses, which is why we don't get a lot of vampires here. If you're a lawyer, I'm defining the South Side here as anything south of Madison, but excluding the Loop. Area-wise, the South Side is almost double. That's the official measurement. Almost double. It's peopled by diverse racial and socioeconomic groups, actually, and offers a wealth of diverse culture, activities, and landmarks. You see St. Mary's the Perpetual Help right there behind you out the window, completed in 1889, and one of Chicago's most moving examples of the Polish cathedral style of church architecture. Yet, the South Side carries a stigma. It's either too dangerous or it's too far for all but the most intrepid to venture out. As for the danger, I suppose there's danger here, but I don't think that it's disproportionate to the danger on the north side. I'm thinking of you, uptown. So when many people think of the South Side, we generally think of Inglewood, the old Robert Taylor projects, death or poverty. When we think of the North Side, we generally think of Lincoln Park, Wicker Park, craft beers, and tennis matches. It's just that the North Side has better press agents, really, and if you study the history of any city, you're going to see a pattern where prosperity and infrastructure seem to accrue to the North. Probably because the North is colder and those with the wealth can be cryogenically frozen and someday return to life to accumulate even more wealth. It's the second stigma that, I find more perplexing when we think of the stigmas of the South Side, that it's too far. Too far from what? Heaven? Whole Foods? I live here in Bridgeport on the fabulous South Side, and I can be at work in the West Loop in 12 minutes by car, 17 by bicycle. Even a unicycle doesn't tack on too much to my commute. The L and buses are convenient. You won't see many cabs, but if you don't mind putting aberrations into the data they're collecting, Uber's going to come down and get you. Southernmost street in Chicago is 138th Street, down in Hegewisch, where Harry Potter's owl lives. The northernmost street is Juneway Terrace, 7800 North in Rogers Park by Evanston. It's called Juneway because if we leave now, it'll be June when we get there. Which is only funny if you're listening to this in January. When I have a party or performance here, many of my friends respond that they'll try to make it, but they can't commit because I live in the dreaded part of town called Boo-Foo, which I don't. Logan Square, that famous neighborhood, is 8 miles northwest of Chicago's Loop, whereas Bridgeport is half that. So I don't know where Boo-Foo is, but I'm sure it's much closer to Logan Square. And sorry my neighborhood isn't named after one of the X-Men. So I find there's a sense of egoism and entitlement when it comes to geographical orientation, and Northsiders, everything is measured from where they are. Northsiders and Southsiders are like the Eloy and Morlocks from The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, and it's up to their perceived troll people of the mysterious South Side to venture to the golden lights and plentiful dining options of the north, usually, because every so often we get one of them down here. They usually stop in East Pilsen, but the bravest have been here. The problem is that at best the trip to the south side is an exercise in exotification, and at worst it's one of condescension, because it's a novelty. And here's where I get to the actual story. Last summer, one of the groups at work paid for a nice dinner for some of their affiliates. It's not worth knowing for the story, but my day job is kind of a metaphorical abattoir. Anyway, they ordered from some online service that has contracts with all different kinds of local restaurants. To me, that seems like a needless middleman, but hey, the demand is there, right? Anyway, someone I didn't know asked my colleague what was for dinner. She told him pot pies. A description that a foodie would probably disdain, but anyway, this person literally squealed and clapped her hands, and she shouted, "Ooh, I hope they're from Pleasant House." Which, indeed, they were. Pleasant House, if you don't know, is a deservedly well-known restaurant specializing in royal pies with locally produced ingredients, located just up the street here, actually. It's rare that something from my neighborhood gets mentioned, so I asked her, do you live in Bridgeport? "No," she scoffed. "But we saw it on Check Please, and every once in a while my husband and I will be brave. We'll venture forth and head all the way down there, to Bufu. We are loving it." "That's great," I said. What else have you seen in the neighborhood when you go down there?" "Well, like we've gone to see the White Sox." Cool. Well, although technically the White Sox play in Armour Square. She gave me a deadpan look with this. "Don't care?" So I said, have you ever been to the Bridgeport Arts Center, Co-Prosperity Spear, Jackalope? We now have a Mariano's here, though technically that's in McKinley Park. Well, we've been meaning to explore, but with the time it takes us to get down there from Logan Square, it, would take all day." And here, my wheels of commerce started to spin. If there's a company that can make money by ordering from restaurants for people who can order from restaurants themselves, why can't I make money showing people from up north the things from my neighborhood? I can be the Rick Steves of Bridgeport. I can show them things that are common to me. It will astonish the average Northsider. Show them things that are so hyper-local they are esoteric. I won't be rich, but I won't have to describe my day job as a metaphorical abattoir anymore. "I'll tell you what," I said. "Here's my card. Give me a call the next time you're down in the neighborhood. I'll take you around." Didn't you catch the part where I said I had a husband?" "What? No, really. I'll give you a tour. You know how I keep using the word abattoir in this story, and most of the audience doesn't know I mean slaughterhouse? Well, I'll start the tour at the end of my block at Bubbly Creek. That's the south branch of the Chicago River, in case you didn't know. I like to say I live by the river, but it's not as impressive when I add that it's called Bubbly Creek here, because the Union stockyards were just south, and for 110 years workers disposed of the viscera of fatted livestock into the water. So much so that the riverbed remains toxic to this day." "That's great," she said. "Ricky and I were planning on coming down next Saturday. We'll text you." And they did. They had a pleasant meal at Pleasant House, and I met them to begin the walking tour. They gave me their leftovers. We walked the 5 or so blocks to the river and turned south. That's a tricky part of Bridgeport called Bridgeport Village. They have homes there that trick Northsiders into thinking they're back in Lincoln Park because they're $1.5 million mansions, but the engineers know better. Those things are made of paper and beehives. Still, I thought to start the tour with something familiar to Ricky and Caitlin. So I started talking about Upton Sinclair's The Jungle when we heard a rustling in the trees on the bank of the river. Ricky gasped and moved behind Caitlin, who moved behind me. It's okay, I said. I'm sure it's just one of our feisty squirrels. Unfortunately, this squirrel was wearing a kilt. He was a white guy, maybe in his mid-20s. He was also wearing a fancy leather jacket with spikes, like from the Village People. It appeared also to be smeared with mud. Yeah, let's say mud. His head was half shaved, and he looked like a medical student had just used him for some extra lobotomy practice. He's covered in scabs. He was disoriented and limping towards us. I don't think he lived in one of those mansions, but he was really polite. Excuse me, where am I? Ricky and Caitlin didn't say anything, so I said, Chicago? You're in Chicago. And he said, I know, but is this Pilsen or Bridgeport? And I said, Bridgeport. Then this is where I am supposed to be. He then thanked me and limped away. I turned around and started to say, it's things like this that give the South Side a bad name. But Ricky and Caitlin were rushing into the back seat of an Uber. They slammed the door and didn't pay me, but I did find a dime on the ground when the car sped away. And here we are tonight.